Did you do one?
I did this.
Okay, do one then. And we can go whatever one you guys did. Okay, start with one.
Okay. So you draw your factory X,
Uh-huh.
and then you put negative 30 at the top. And then you put positive 13 at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And then you put positive 15 on your left, and negative 2 on the right.
How would you know that's positive and that's negative?
Because you have to add to positive 13.
Good. So if this is positive, I know my bigger factor is positive. So now how would I write that?
X plus 15, X minus 15.
Beautiful. Who got that as their answer? I know. I put 13 up. So whichever one you guys did, you can tell me how to do. All right, Mesa, which one did you do the top three or did you do the next row?
Two.
You did two? Okay. Tell me how to do that one.
So I first saw which one was A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
So A is 1, negative 5 is negative 24, and then I'm going to do X. And then A times C is negative 24, B is negative 5, and the factor, I messed up negative 24, negative 8 is 9.
And so we know since that's negative, we know the bigger factor is going to be negative.
Then you have X minus A,
Mm-hmm.
X plus.
Beautiful. Who got that if you did this problem? Awesome. Who was the last one? Come here. Did you do number 3? Okay.
You make X and A is 1 and C is 8, 36, and X is negative 36. And then 5. Then 9 is negative 4.
Mm-hmm.
And because 9 is positive, because 5 is positive, 9 is positive. So you get X plus 9 times X minus 4.
Beautiful. So X plus 9, X minus 4. And I don't need to put anything underneath because what is A in all of these? 1. Beautiful. So are we good with that? So the only thing we're adding on today is we're finding our zeros or our x-intercepts. So if I'm throwing something to Alana, ready Alana? Where I start and where she is our x-intercepts, right? So what's important in parabolas, right? If someone's kicking a ball or someone's throwing something or something's being projected in the air, that where I start and where I end is important, right? Because I would have to throw a lot further if I was throwing to Zairia than if I'm throwing to Alana. So we're going to learn how to get our x-intercepts from these. So you guys can take out this little paper thing, and what I did is the first step's going to take a lot longer than the other two. And so the first thing we're doing, and this is just going in your book, do you not have it? Okay. Yep, and you can fold them. So it says step 1, step 2. And so mine looks something like this. So each one's a different color. If you want to color code, that's fine. So it looks like this. Yeah, it looks like this in my book. So step 1, step 2, step 3. You're just going to fold. Oh, yeah. We'll get that in a second. You're welcome. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is factor, and it's the exact same thing we've been doing, right? So first, is everything on one side of the equation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a number that can go into all 3 except 1? No. So I get started. So my A here would be what? 3. My B is 4. And my C is negative 4. So same thing we've been doing the last class, right? I make my X and I make my ACB. So this is all for step 1. Because first they're telling me to factor. So what is 3 times negative 4? Negative 12. And I'm adding to positive 4. Who can raise their hand and tell me 2 numbers that multiply to negative 12 that add to positive 4? Raise your hand. Yeah. 6 and negative 2, right? Because that's positive, so the bigger number needs to be positive. And 6 minus 2 is 4. Ding, ding, ding. So I write it like this. X plus 6 and X minus 2. But what is our a this time? 3, right? So I need to put 3 underneath both of them, just like we did on our quiz last class. And we reduce. So this is all step 1 if you want to keep it together. I just wrote in one color, step 1. So can I reduce that? What is 6 divided by 3? 2. And can I reduce this fraction?
No.
Nope, so the 3 goes up with the x, and it looks something like that. So that's my first step. So basically the same thing that we've been learning for the last couple classes, where first we factor it. And so the only difference between our bell ringer and this is that we have to put a under both of them. But before a was 1, so we didn't really need to do that. So step 2 is make both factors equal to 0. So all I do is I take these two factors and I just make them equal to 0. So here's step 2. I go like this. The reason why is I'm solving for my x-intercept. And what is the y-coordinate to get your x-intercept? 0, right? So technically that's what we're doing. We're plugging in 0 for y. And then step 3 is we solve, and they're also called our zeros, our roots, our solutions. They're all called the same thing. They will use those words interchangeably on your milestone. So you want to make sure you know all those words mean the same thing. And so all I do is I try to get x by itself. How do I get x alone here? Subtract 2. And I end up getting x equals negative 2. And so I would do negative 2 comma 0. That's my first x-intercept. Over here, how would I get the x-intercept? I add 2, right? It's a 2-step now. And I get 3x equals 2. Then how do I get x by itself? Divide by 3. And you end up getting x equals 2/3. You could keep it as a fraction. So it would be 2/3 comma 0. So that's the only extra thing you're doing today. So your x-intercepts, how you do it is you take your factors, you make them equal to 0 and solve. So basically, what you're doing is, so if I'm Alana, and I'm right here at negative 2, here she is, and here's me, I'm at 0.666, which is that number, that's where we are on the coordinate plane. That's how far away we are. So you can see those are where you're at on the coordinate plane. Not everything's going to be like a little coordinate plane, right? We don't walk around and see numbers everywhere, but you do measure things in certain units. So that's basically what we're trying to find right here. Does that make sense? Okay, does everyone have a yellow calculator? I want to make sure we know how to check our work, especially since 90% of your test is going to be multiple choice. So if you want to do it at the bottom, or if you have room on your notebook, this is how we check our work. So for checking our work, and you can do this for if you're given just numbers or x coordinates for your answer choices, you can just plug them in like this. And so all I do is I take my original equation. So the original one was 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 equals 0. So it looks like this. 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 equals 0. Does everyone see that? That's your original equation, right? All you're doing, so this is the question that we just factored. And so all you're doing, and you can write this maybe somewhere else in your notebook, all you're doing is you're taking both of the x-intercepts, plug them in for x, and you should get 0 as your answer. If you do, you know you did it right. If you didn't, you know it's incorrect. So like, even when you look on the back of this paper, you guys see that right here, like where it says milestone practice on the back of your worksheet? That's what the questions are going to look like a lot of times. So even if you forgot everything about factoring, what could you always do with those numbers? Plug them in and they both have to work. So let's just make sure. And I'll show you how that works. So all you do in your calculator is you type 3, and instead of x, what's our first x-intercept? Negative 2. Make sure square goes on the outside. Make sure that's a negative. Plus 4. What's our x? No, keep it the same one. Negative 2 minus 4. And so that should equal 0. So plug that all into your calculator, and if it equals 0, you know you did it right. So you're literally typing this in 3 parentheses negative 2, exactly how you see it on my board. Does that make sense? And so when you do that, make sure you know how to do it correctly, and make sure this is minus 4. A lot of people are putting negatives, and it's not coming out right. When you did it, does it end up equaling 0? Yep. And then do it for the second one. if you know if that -2 is only in one answer choice, then you know that's the right one. You don't even need to do the second one. If -2 is in different answer choices, we want to maybe try the second one. All you do, when you see a fraction like this, you do 2, what's the fraction bar mean? What sign? Division. So you just do 2 divided by 3 in the parentheses. Plus 4, 2 divided by 3, minus 4. See if that equals 0. If it does, you know you get it. Does that make sense? And so, like, save yourself time. That milestone's timed. And this is all on your ACT, SAT. If you remember these type of things, always check your work by plugging it in. Or if you want to save time, just plug your answers in. Sometimes they'll say, like, what's a factor? So you would need to actually factor. But if they give you numbers that are answer choices, you can always just plug it in and figure out which one works. It does take longer, though. Does that make sense? Does everyone have this down? That's all we're learning today. So now we're going to practice with our worksheet on the video. Sound good? Okay. So let's go back to our bell ringer right here. And so these are our factors, right? We already did this. What are we going to do with the factors to get our x-intercepts? What do we make them equal to? Make them equal to 0. Just to save you time, too, I want to make sure you guys are saving time. See how this one ended up being 2/3? And so I saw some people whose answers were like this, right? When they factored, they got x minus 2/3. So what do you think the relationship is between this right here and our x-intercept? -2/3 and +2/3. What's the difference? The sign, right? And so if this is +2, what was our x-intercept? -2. Just switch the signs. Just make sure if you're putting a under both of them that you figure out which one is. Make sure you put a under both and then flip the sign. So some people had this as their answer on the quiz. It's technically correct, but it wouldn't be written like that as a factor. Yeah.
Using that, you do that.
Like, yeah, so if they ask you for the factor, then you just want stuff that you would need to write it like this. If they want your zeros, your x-intercepts, that you can just say, oh, I see it's 2/3, and you know that's correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so on your test today, the 2 last multiple choice ones, you are going to be able to do that. Okay, so let's go back to the bell ringer. So we can make them equal to 0, or we can just look at them. So what's this one do you think is going to be? -15, 0. And what's this one going to be? Yeah. So you can sit there and make it equal to 0, but I don't want you to waste time.
Is that equal for every one of them?
Yeah, so the only one is if, like, it's saying A right here was 5, right? And I put A underneath. Instead of moving this up and making them equal to 0, what's the opposite of 3/5? Yeah, so it'll always be like that. Just make sure you remember that A. But yeah. Mm-hmm. So what would this one be? +8. What's this one?
-3.
Perfect. What's this one? Yeah, it's a 9.
Oh,
-9. What's that one? 4. The only thing that people messed up on is when they're choosing their answer choices for the multiple choice, they did all the correct work and then chose the wrong answer. Like they weren't looking carefully at the sign. And remember, like it's not going to be going, oh, you can get half credit because you were doing it right, but you picked the wrong answer. It's all computerized. So I want to get you guys used to that fast. Yeah.
Because when you told us we could write, it doesn't matter in what way like we write it. So -2, like for that one.
This one.
-2 could be in the place of the 15, and 15 on the other side. Would it still count?
Like this, x minus 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as the negative is with the 2 and the positive is with the 15. Do you get what I'm saying? As long as the plus is with 15. So if this plus is with 15, then I'm good.
But I'm saying we have to do like the inverse.
Mm-hmm. So this would still be -15. It would just be on this side. You just need to be careful because when we're adding, we know what sign to use by looking at this. So if we're multiplying to a negative and adding to a positive, you know the bigger factor has to have the plus sign. The other two, if you're multiplying to a positive, they're both the same sign. So they're either both negative or both positive. Okay. The rest of the paper on the front, well, first of all, number 20, do you guys see it? 20?
Yeah.
Change that to +32. I don't know why it says minus. So this one right here. Right here, this should be +32. This whole paper, the front, I want you to make sure you're looking, and there's a number, you're factoring out the GCF. Like, for example, what number goes into all three of these? 3, and divide them by 3. That 3 does not affect your x-intercepts. So what I mean by that, if I divided this all by 3, I know if they ask me for the factors, I know that's in my outside of my answer, right? So what is 3 divided by 3? 1x squared minus 5x plus 6, right? And so if I'm multiplying to a positive, I know I'm having the same sign, right? And so if it's adding to a negative, are they both going to be positive or negative? Negative, right? What multiplies 6 and adds to 5?
We had it.
So if I go like this, the ACB, I'm multiplying to 1 times 6, which is 6, and adding to negative 5. Which two numbers multiply to 6? 3 and 2, right? But they're both going to be negative because I need to add to a negative 5. And so a lot of people, the only thing I see a lot of people struggle with are the signs. So if you're multiplying to a positive, you know they have to be the same sign. So they're either both going to be negative or both going to be positive. This B is what's going to tell me if it's negative, both negative or both positive. So there's no way that I can pay Kaylin $10 and pay her $15 and she'll be out negative money. That wouldn't make sense. It has to be 2 negative numbers if this is positive. So that might just be looking at and getting used to the signs. I have a little cheat sheet if you guys are getting confused and need that for now, and I can give you that also. So if you're getting confused by these sign things, I can give you a cheat sheet. Does that make sense? What I want to get to though, see how this 3 is on the outside? That doesn't matter with your x-intercepts. You're still making these both equal to 0. We're using the inverse of what's in here. So what would my first x-intercept be? This would be 3 and this one would be 2. This doesn't affect your x-intercepts.
You still put it outside?
Yeah. Just in case they ask for the factors. So if they ask for the factors, you would need to put on the outside. You don't need to do all this if you're doing a multiple choice test, because I just want the answer. However you want to get it. Okay, the back 3 are like what we did on our survival guide. So look at the back 3. Those are like where you're going to have to do the ACB and put the number underneath and go through all that. There's going to be one of each on your quiz. Any questions? Yeah, so one like this where you're dividing by a number. There's going to be one just regular one like this. And there's going to be one where you're going to have to multiply A times C and put it under and all that. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions before you guys begin? I have a bunch of other activities. So like if you finish early, I have like level 1 activities if you just want to practice factoring. Level 2 if you want to, if you're in the middle, or level 3 if you want to try a challenge. And you get stamps for those also. Real quick, I'm not going to talk anymore until you take your quiz, but I want to just go over a few things so you can look in your book if you need to freshen up on 2 questions that are going to be on your test today, or quiz. The first one is you need to know the parts of a parabola. So remember, the parabola is a U thing like that, right? And so when it's touching this axis, what are these called? Say it louder. X-intercepts. I'm giving you a word bank, so you would know those are x-intercepts. What about when it touches the y-axis up here? Y-intercept. What's this called, this point? Vertex. What's this line called? Axis of symmetry, right? And the whole thing is called a what? Yeah, that's your first question. I literally give you the words. You're just matching. The second question is something like this. You're multiplying polynomials. So remember, you can do the FOIL method. If you want to look at that purple sheet that we went over, the FOIL method, distributive property, box method. Does anyone need me to go over this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So remember, you take the first one, this couple split up, right? I'll do the distributive one. 2x minus 3, they split up. They're done. There they are. The 4x plus 2, he's friends with both of them, right? So they've got to visit both of them. Make sure they're okay. And then we multiply. So what's 2x times 4x? 8x what? Squared. Most people on their test got that wrong. They put 8x. They got the whole thing wrong. What's 2x times 2? 4x. Yep. Negative 3 times 4x? Mm-hmm. Just one x, because this one doesn't have an x. What about that? Good. And then we just combine our like terms. What is negative 12 plus 4?
Negative.
Negative 8. That's your answer. Or you could have done the box method or FOIL. You can look, you'll have time to look back at that purple sheet if you want to look at that. The rest of them is what we did today in chapter. Sound good? It's only 7 problems. Okay, so make sure you're getting your stamps, you're stamping yourself when you're done. I have a bunch of activities back there you can choose from based on your level. If you need help just with like the basic stuff, you can do that. If you want to try a challenge, you can do that. We're good? If you want to work on Excel, you can do that. You're the choice. All right, cool. Let me stop this video with you guys.